these moments. Sorry, guys, the mic was not on. So I have to repeat and start all over again. So to all of those that are tuning in online, I was just saying there, welcome. Sorry, you saw me just kind of speak in memes. I hope you didn't take a picture with your cell phone. But I was saying, welcome to Sustainability Summit 2020. And if you've just joined us, well, you've missed out on some content, but lucky for you, you do have a record on YouTube and you can access the presentations on all live streams that are available at Cape Media Corporation. Please don't forget to hashtag SAS Summit 2020. Just to repeat that, at SAS Summit 2020. Add your comments, add your questions, give us feedback so we can make sure that we have rigorous conversations going forward. I am truly, truly honored to be welcoming back Mr. Brandon Abedner, who's an attorney, consultant, and co-founder of Climate Risk Clinic. He will be introducing the rest of our panels to us. This is the second last panel discussion that we're having for the day, and we're talking about sustainable water resources. And Brandon, over to you so you can introduce the topic and also our panelists. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Tabang. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Sorry that we started a bit late. We've had a bit of a knock-on effect from some gremlins in the morning, but it's good to see you all here. So I'm going to ask you to please introduce yourselves, just who you are, who you work for, and a little bit about how that work ties in with the topic. So if I can start with Chetan.
Hi everyone, my name is Chetan Mistry. I'm the Strategy and Marketing Manager for Xylem Africa. So part of my role is looking at strategies as far as creating sustainability for organizations, within our organizations, how we engage our customers. We're looking at technologies and how we bring those technologies into the Africa market, as well as from a marketing point of view. So a holistic view from that point of view.
Super. Thanks, Chetan. Lester.
Thanks, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm the CEO at WISA, which is the Water Institute of Southern Africa. WISA is both a membership body and a professional body, and we aim to bring together a wide range of disciplines to meet, discuss, plan for, present solutions for sustainable water future in the region. Water is one of the greatest challenges facing SA and its neighbors, so government, stakeholders, partners, and public participants must come together to find innovative ways of managing water to ensure sustainable and robust water supply for our ever-growing urban populations. Effective water management is only possible when these interrelated factors and needs are considered. These stakeholders, along with our individual members, comprise the WISA membership we are proud to serve. We also host one of the largest water conferences, and this year our online biennial conference is taking place next week, and details are available on our website. So, thank you.
Super. Thank you, Lester. Indeed, it is one of our biggest challenges. Richard.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Garner. I'm the head of department at the MSA Group. The environmental department for that matter. We're a consultancy that deals with mining for A to Z, so from exploration work all the way through to closure. As environmental, we obviously spread across that whole ambit. But our focus, one of our focus areas includes water management, specifically around water strategies, but also around the implementation of water management from water balances through to the application of technologies that would relate to efficiencies and the operational integrity of the organization to meet the legal obligation. Yes.
Super. Thank you, Richard. And Mads.
Yes, Mads Warming from Danfoss, and I'm heading our global water activity at Danfoss Group with 28,000 people around the globe. And within the water business, relevant today are the largest manufacturer of wireable speed drive for the water business. And in that context, I have been involved in a lot of projects, including looking at leakage, the way to reduce leakage as a major water resource, which we sometimes forget, look at it as a water resource, And on top of that, being involved in what we believe is the first place on the planet where it had been possible to have 200,000 people to get both drinking water and wastewater basically without using energy, also simply by being super efficient on cutting energy consumption down and at the same time increasing energy production from the water facilities. They have succeeded, in fact, making it completely energy neutral. So I hope I can bring a little bit of experience in from different places. Yep, thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mads. Mads, it would be good to hear a bit more about that just now. We're probably going to be joined by one more person a little later as well. So I'm going to generally direct questions at the people that I think they should be directed at, but please make use of the raise hands function if you want to add something to the question that's been asked. It worked quite effectively this morning. Okay, so Lester, to you initially. So what are the trends in terms of water availability in South Africa? Are we in trouble? And if we are in trouble, is that trouble intensifying, and at what sort of rate?
Yeah, Brandon, we live in a country classified as having chronic water shortages. This is impacted by climate change and an increasing demand for water, as well as even now COVID-19 priorities. Water security is much more serious than most other socioeconomic issues, as there's no substitute for water. Right now, and hugely influenced by the pandemic, the job of sustaining water provision will be very challenging in the future. For example, municipalities are owed huge amounts by residents and may be unable to pay their respective water boards. This debt may further increase as even more of the reliable base of water payers is eroded by the impact of the pandemic. It is a vicious circle, unfortunately, that will not only impact on supply, but also on required investment in equipment, upgrades, maintenance, and so forth to meet future water demands. So yeah, it is a concern going forward, and I think yeah, the water sector is getting together to try and discuss and come up with actions to address some of these issues.
Great, thanks, Lester. Richard, are significant water and energy savings possible through water efficiency?
Most definitely. Without a doubt, water efficiency is one of the key strategic elements in the national water strategy for the country. And it is achievable. We've seen it in several organizations that have tied themselves to water efficiency. So most definitely, it's not a new concept. It's something that can be dealt with. But I think the biggest challenge often in the space is understanding just exactly what can be done under the current economic situation, and I think Lester's alluded to that. But even more so about understanding the real cost of water and how much it can actually motivate for efficiency. We talk a lot about industry and the economy, but often we don't necessarily fully understand the value of the utilities that we use. Now, we saw that in the past with energy, and that very quickly came to an adjustment. And I think water's in the same sort of space. We need to fully understand the true value of water at the point before we can actually see the full implementation of the efficiencies that we would need to achieve that kind of, if you will, efficiency saving and that kind of solution to partly of our problem.
The water is certainly not going to get cheaper by the sounds of it.
You know, there's two ways to that. Hey, it can get cheaper, but also the technologies need to get, well, water can get more expensive, but also we can get smarter about how we approach it. And we also need to get a little bit cheaper in the solutions we apply. We don't need to necessarily go for a Rolls Royce in some cases. I think sometimes just a simple application that's robust will actually do a lot in terms of savings.
Okay. Chetan, in terms of that, what are some of the technologies that may come to our aid?
I think one of the important elements around when you're talking efficiency is also not looking at efficiency in one paradigm of the water cycle, but looking at the actual water cycle holistically is highly critical, because in the beginning you can create some saving at one point and through the loop you may lose out on another point. So it's important to look at it from that point of view. So again, the technology is an important enabler, and it's highly critical. And that can help you obviously monitor your entire water network to see where you got your losses coming from, and substantiate in that way and improve your investments and improve how you're managing your network, etc. But there's also the other element for efficiencies on the behavioral side of things. So it's important from a user point of view that we look at it as well, because it's highly important. We talk about the value of water. If we don't understand the value of water, then the usage becomes another consideration. So when you look at efficiency, you've got to look at it right throughout the cycle, plus the users that are there, and it's important to influence every point.
Okay. So one of the links that isn't always made by those that aren't specialists in the industry is that of energy and water. And obviously proper water management or intensive water management takes a lot of energy. Mads, you spoke about the project where you got 200,000 people to get drinking water and wastewater treatment in an energy neutral way. That's quite amazing. Can you spend a few minutes just telling us about that and how that was achieved?
Easy. So if I should follow a little bit on what Titan just mentioned, then I think I agree too that it's a question about figuring out where is the leakage and so on. But I think also it's important because that spill into what I will tell about also. That it's not always needed that you dig out pipes, that you repair pipes, or you rebuild a new wastewater facility. So basically you can do a tremendous lot of things in the existing system. And if we take on the drinking water network, you can by making pressure management, that means split your city into pressure zones and so on, having booster stations and so on, you can cut down your pressure and you will immediately reduce your leakage right away. Up to 40% is statistics from 110 different cases. So that is a much cheaper way to do it than I don't say you should not replace pipes. I'm just trying to say that there's another technology which will do the work a lot cheaper or help you a lot short term. And coming back to the story about the 200,000 people, the precondition for that they can get to that level where they are energy neutral is exactly that the water leakage, we start on the water side, that the water leakage is down, because if you have a tremendous high water leakage, you have also tremendous high energy loss. So not only you have spent a lot of energy on providing the water and pump it out, when you then just accept that it leak out. So they are down on, I think, 6% or 7% in leakage or something like that. And on top of that, by splitting your city or network into pressure zones, it means that you reduce the pressure in the whole network, even though you comply with what customers need or you have promised customers. But that also means that you will lower your energy consumption. And on the wastewater facility, which is old facility, so I think it's important that not every time it have to do with building something big new. No, it's an old traditional activated sludge treatment plants where they have invested in, which is compared to the size of the facility, small money, but have invested in a lot of sensors, a lot of variable speed drive, which I of course like, and then some process know-how, but where in fact it had proven to be possible on the one hand to reduce the energy consumption. And if you do that in a clever way on a wastewater facility, you will at the same time be able to increase the amount of sludge you get for your digester. And that means that you get gas out from your digester you can use for producing electricity. So it's well known as the whole way about producing electricity in a digester, that is well known. What is optimized here is in fact to have a lot more sensors than you normally see, trusting them, letting a computer control it, have a lot more variable speed drive on whatever can rotate, and in that way, in fact, make a much more optimized control of the whole facility. And that means that the wastewater facility, without producing enough energy to cover what it needs itself, it produces around about 100% more, which are then used for the drinking water side. What is also important when people listen to this is normally that they guess, then probably they have a windmill or they have some solar panels or they have other things. No, they don't. It's household wastewater. There's no wastewater from any other facilities. There is no what we call fog gas or coming from the food industry, no no material coming outside from. It's pure household wastewater. And that is what makes the case amazing. It's not the only case. We have it also in Odense and in Copenhagen, similar, and we begin to see it coming in Chicago, in US, and other places. So people are beginning to pick up on it. I don't say it's an easy ride because you really know going down deep down in the process and control them very tightly. But I think it's important to realize that energy and water, as you said, is linked together. And on the drinking water side, you can do something very good for your water supply or water scarcity issues by reducing the leakage, and at the same time you get a benefit that you save energy. And on the wastewater side, you can do both things again, save energy and at the same time increasing your energy production. So it has been in operation for 5-6 years now. So again, nothing. So it's stable. It's fluctuating a little bit up and down, of course, as real world is. And return on investment for around about 5 years on the investment they have done. So I think to what Lester said and appreciate that there is always a limited amount of money, that it's worthwhile trying to look that way. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks, Matt. Richard, just from the little you've maybe heard now, can you see something like this being replicable in South Africa?
Yeah, most definitely. You know, I don't think there's a limitation on it. We have sewage plants with the same technologies and the same applications, and also old treatment plants that everyone's looking to do just what Mads is saying, rip up and change with something that's retrofit on top of it. And getting smart about the application of a technology in old infrastructure is probably the name of the game at the moment. There's not a huge amount of spare capital floating around. So actually applying this kind of technology is an easy fit. And it's not just that technology around sewage waste management and water management in that sense. It can apply in industrial applications. You can see a lot of retrofit and proven technologies from around the world that can actually be harvested and used. And at this stage, we seem to be a little bit insular as a country in focusing on where we would like. And I think that's a little bit because we are looking at the cash strap situation, and probably the problem sits very close to our nose in terms of financial, and we're not necessarily always looking at the longer term plan and the delivery on that. Because what Mads is talking about doesn't just happen overnight either. It requires a lot of technical input, some specialists. You have to invest in it, and it doesn't just continue to operate on its own without tender love and care. So we do need to make sure that we have a fit for purpose understanding of how we apply these technologies. But yes, they are totally applicable. And it's not that it's not happening in South Africa, it's just not happening at a big enough scale for us to actually recognize it. I don't know if that answers your question, Brandon.
Yeah, no, that does. Yeah, thank you. Lester, you mentioned climate change. Do you have statistics or insight into just how much climate change has aggravated water shortage situation in South Africa so far?
I think I don't specifically have any stats on that at this point in time, Brandon. But certainly, climate change has worsened the challenge, and we need to look at the almost the culture of water usage domestically, and bulk water usage. I think domestically we must firstly accept that we are a water scarce country and work at mechanisms of changing the cultural behavior of domestic usage. I think climate change is here. I think it will be around for a while, and I think it's a joint activity that needs to be, or joint mitigation factors that need to be undertaken by government, commerce and industry, society as a whole. We need to look at regulation and policy in this regard. We need to look at allocations of water, whether it's fair and equitable between the various bulk users. And then we must also increase, I think, the effectiveness and efficiency of our water institutions. We must improve performance, planning and implementation throughout the value chain. And this would look at increasing the water mix, using a holistic and more balanced approach as well to water usage and the water mix. And then definitely different sources and efficiencies in the utilization of the resources that we do have, and there's many different factors that influence that, and certainly many different options. To me, I always think the plans have been around for a while. I think what is more challenge is the implementation or the action of those plans. And I think that's where we need to be a bit more holistic and partner with the relevant stakeholders in that regard. I hope that answers it. Yeah,
it does. Yeah. So I mean, it's a precious situation from the outset, and really, it's just going to get a lot more hectic. Chetan, I don't know if you will be able to answer this, or anyone else that wants to. But for instance, what could a city like Cape Town do to avoid another day zero situation, apart from magically create rain? What kind of planning and initiatives do you think could proactively be put in place?
So I think obviously a day zero type of environment comes about from years of improper strategies in a sense, or misdirected strategies. We often sometimes don't understand the long-term effects of some of the changes that are taking place as far as climate, etc. So it's not about thinking about what's happening today, but it's about the long-term planning that takes place. A lot of our scenarios have been flagged, and we kind of respond a little bit slowly, so we're a little reactive, as many organizations are around the world. So, but understanding that these situations can arise and actually planning for those is highly important. And part of that is a matter of investment and monitoring and management. And again, if you go back to understanding the full water cycle, there's definitely technologies to implement right throughout those different phases to ensure that we, for every drop of water that's produced, so to speak, that we actually account for it and we bring it back into that water cycle. That's an important element, because wastage is one of the key elements that takes place. It's not about wastage only at the end user's point, but also wastage in the system itself. So again, it's critical, and there's so many ways to make sure that water is used properly in that environment. So first of all, the infrastructure itself, ensuring that it's working properly. We encounter countless times where we're seeing water leakages on our roadsides that are going on for weeks sometimes, and that's mainly because we're slow to react, we can't find the leak itself, so we're digging up trenches of road to kind of find these leaks, and there's technologies to help in these. And not only are the technologies there to help find these leaks or to manage your infrastructure, but also to be proactive in the way that we're managing this, so that we can take a preventative maintenance type of approach to the network itself. And these monitoring tools are sometimes, like most technologies, expensive to deploy, but the paradigm about the investment versus the cost saving that comes out of it. So if you put in 100,000 Rand to do a leak detection versus losing 500,000 Rands due to heavy water losses. So those are the type of paradigms we got to really look at. And again, it's the importance to understand that shift that needs to take place. Besides for that investment that we need to go into it, often the savings that we can account for in managing our water systems properly allows us then to put that savings back into capital investment into the infrastructure. So the savings we generate, and we kind of save on the elements of fixing pipes and looking around for pipes, but because we're now fixing those pipes efficiently and getting to managing our networks efficiently, now we can invest in new infrastructure, new technologies, and that will then allow us to be more efficient in our entire water network all over again. And therefore, it's important the technologies that we do put in are, again, we're cutting across the entire water cycle and not limited to one point of the water cycle, because again, the losses can take place anywhere in the cycle. So it's highly critical to look at that point of view. So, and the good thing is that we often look at the position that we are in and we look back and saying, you know, what haven't we done? The good thing is that Africa as a continent, not only South Africa, we understand that the situation is like this, and we're looking for ways to kind of solve it. We may not always have the means that's there. So we're seeing institutions like recently we attended the W12 event that took place in Cape Town. This is driven by Day Zeros, and for other communities around the globe not to experience these days. So people are putting focus on this, and this is an important shift in mindset. So we can see that we can recover from this situation and prevent further situations like this from occurring.
Great, thanks, Chetan. So yeah, it's about budget and mindset.
Brandon, can I just add to that?
Please, yeah.
Because I think you've hit a very valid point on this one. You know, when we talk about climate change and the implications that can happen with cities like Cape Town, there's a key point to this, and I think Chetan hit it on the head straight off. Planning. You know, anything can go wrong with planning. It's about the right information being used for those planning elements. And often as not, when cities do planning, they tend to either focus on the biophysical, which is the climate change, and it's the 3% increased evaporation loss and all those elements to it. But often they also don't look at the economic growth and drivers for demand of water. And it's the combination of those two that actually accentuates climate change and the implications we see. So to solve the Cape Town problem is actually not to get into it in the first place. The point is that you can put the best possible efficiency device that you would like in place at any point in time, but if there's no water in the pipe for it to be efficient, there's no efficiency. So the efficiency drive, if you will, for Cape Town that is potentially on the cusp of it, and potentially Gauteng too, talks to actually being able to plan appropriately with the right information, but then start doing the implementation of efficiency type and demand type management. Now, if you want shade, don't plant the tree when you want the shade. You need to plant it 20 years ago. And the same rule applies here. And I think that's what Chetan did quite nicely. And I think that's the point, is we need to be more involved in the planning of cities and development and inserting the efficiency agenda into that development at an early stage for us to actually make an impact. Once it's happened, it's too late. We can put the best rainwater harvesting system in place, but if there's no rain, sorry for you.
Yeah, I hear you. So really being proactive is essential.
Could I add to it, Brandon?
Please, Mats.
I could only agree. So certainly there seems to be something we agree upon here. And also, if I look around the globe where they are facing similar problems, and quite often what you see, what Chetan is talking about is you look holistic at the water cycle, and you'll see that the farmers is one of the big issues. They're using a tremendous lot of water for irrigation purpose. And what you really see is that if you don't have that holistic picture, you are not in control of what is going on. So I can only agree to that. I know it sometimes politically is a difficult subject, but that's something else. It's real life. You need to touch it. And what I would like to stress is, in fact, that what I see is amazing. So sometimes you see farmers taking 60-70% of the water resources available. And it's amazing how much you can cut that, and they can still grow the same amount of crop just by using smart technology. And I know it because we are involved in it. And in fact, somebody asked the other day whether we also had cases in South Africa. Yes, we have just a farmer where we have cut energy consumption with, I think, 55%. And at the same time, he's now in control of a lot better when he is adding water, when he don't add water, and so on. So he take care of his water resources. He did it then because the price of electricity is high, and that's fair enough if that's the argument. But he do something good for the water scarcity at the same time. So again, a place where you by existing facilities can go in and help on both water scarcity and energy use. So I could only agree that look holistic at it, as mentioned by the two previous. Yeah.
Matt, just for those of us who are lay people in the water game, so just an idea of the types of technologies that were used, for example, in that 55% saving example.
Yeah, but that is not so that is well-known technology. That is for speed drives, and that's basically where you are able to, based on a simple pressure transmitter and so on, you can adjust the speed of the pumps and so on, and based that makes sense. What they had previously was that they had a valve where they then reduce the pressure when they felt they need to cut down the pressure, but then you are losing a tremendous lot of energy, of course. You are burning your energy in the valve. So it's that simple. But if you look at what they do, if that's what you're asking about in, for instance, in California and other places, then they some of them use very advanced satellite systems to figure out how much water do you need when. Because it's based on when are you expecting rain, how much sun are you expecting, what type of crop do you have, what is the ground you have, and so on. So there's a lot of things linking to it. It don't need to be that advanced as in the first row. Just to go in and get a better control of the existing system would help you a lot. You could save a lot. I am more or less can guarantee that there's a lot of water which are flowing, which the farmer also can see is maybe not needed. Yes, he could cut down and he could do that and that and that. And then the next step could be to be as advanced as we see some places with satellite control, but I don't think that's needed in the first row. The other thing when we are talking about other places, when I now are talking, is that what we see increasingly, for instance, in Australia and other places, is that they use wastewater and convert into drinking water and inject it into the underground. So if you have water resources and or underground resources, and you know that you're so typical, maybe have 2 or 3 years where maybe some rain or normal rain, and then you have a dry time, then what they basically are doing is that they are taking wastewater and through membrane technology and then convert it into drinking water, inject it into the underground, so that you have a major reservoir the day where you really have a water crisis. Yeah, it's not cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than to take seawater. It's cheaper to take wastewater than to take seawater. So there's a lot. Africa is not the only one. There's a lot of experience to nick from other places in the world. Yeah, so it's facing these problems. Yeah.
All right. No, thanks for that, Matt. Chetan, do you? I don't know if you. Yes?
Sorry, Brendan. I just wanted to add and say, Matt is quite correct. There are many generic solutions, but I think the right mix of solutions is what is required for each unique situation and environment. And, we hope that the decision makers have the required competency and capacity to make these choices whilst balancing competing demands for scarce resources. And I think that's where they can call on, experts from commerce, from academia, and even from, the companies like this. I think that information was freely available to the decision makers, specifically around the day zero, we're not so sure that there was a call or that information or call for information was adhered to in many respects.
Okay.
I can only agree. You need to be adapted to the local thing. There's no standard solution if that's the statement. Yeah, of course. But there's some concepts which you can say is right to apply when you have water scarcity or consider. Yeah.
Richard, are we seeing a good uptake around water efficiency? Are people embracing smart use of water as such? I mean, with or without technological intervention?
I think it's growing. We're seeing people starting to become more aware, and I think actually Cape Town was probably one of the big advantages of South Africa most recently. For as much of a disaster as it was, it highlighted the fact that a whole city or a whole region could become water strapped to the point where people couldn't have basic ablutions and facilities, and their rights would have been waived in the fact that there was no water. So I think that's been quite a big jump in the psyche around water and the value of water. Unfortunately, I think a lot of this boils down to human psyche and our ability to forget, because I think Lester alluded to this where he said, COVID has been in the way. Well, yes, most definitely. And it's been at the forefront of our minds for the last, I think, 8 months or so, feels like 8 years. But it really sort of shuffled some of the current issues that are on the table that are actually systemic out of the way, and water efficiency is one of those. So yes, there has been an uptake, to answer your question, but it has been somewhat muted because of current affairs. But if I look at it in terms of how it's been systematically applied in South Africa, we are seeing a move towards water efficiency being embedded inside our industry and our communities. And we don't call it water efficiency in South Africa, we call it water conservation and demand management. But water conservation and demand management is now being driven through the Department of Water and Sanitation in several different sectors. So we talked a little bit about water losses in the domestic or the public sector supplying bulk water. And most definitely, non-revenue water is what they tend to focus on because of the financial aspect. But it's very much about the amount of leakage that happens between the abstraction and the delivery that they would generally get revenue for. And the focus there is to try and address that issue through improving their service management, but also looking at the technologies that we've sort of alluded to about in-situ pipe repairs, making sure they detect the leaks earlier on, pressure management on systems, and that kind of thing. And we're seeing certain of the municipalities starting to take quite proactive steps in doing this. It's going to take time because the networks are extensive and large. Other sectors like the agricultural sector, which we talked about a little bit, most definitely they are starting to look very much at what the allocations are and how they're going to manage crops. We often grow the wrong crop for our country, considering the amount of water that we actually have. So we export a lot of our water in terms of fruit. And an orange is pretty much 90% water. It's really nice fruit, but in terms of getting rid of the water, that's one way to export it out of the country. So, we need to start looking seriously at what kind of crops that we're planting. And I already see up in the Popo, farmers starting to look at different crops, for instance, looking at cactuses and looking at cactus type crops and outcomes. I'm not talking about tequila, by the way. But they are looking at different types of cropping systems. But also they're dealing very closely with AgriForum and a number of other suppliers to improve not only their water efficiency, but how they manage their existing irrigations. So we're seeing that in that sector. In the mining sector, funny enough, today, they've just had a water conservation and demand management training course co-sponsored by WISA and by the Mineral Council of South Africa to actually look at how the industry will improve the recyclability of water that's in the mining sector and benchmarking how they can over 5 years reduce their consumption of abstracted water into those mines. And that's a variety of different technologies that they're looking to try and input. But most importantly is there's a framework for the industry now to grab hold of and to start working with. And so we're starting to see a maturity in different sectors, from the examples that I've just given you, where the water efficiency element is starting to become a far more real and tangible. And it's going to take a bit of time. As I said, there's financial hurdles, there's retrofit hurdles, and there's some technology hurdles, and also some behavioral hurdles, by the way, in a way. But I think the momentum is starting. The big thing is about being able to actually create the right amount of momentum economic to justify some of these projects, and at the same time also make sure that the companies, businesses, entities, as we will, start to recognize that it's not just about dollars at times, it's largely also about becoming sustained business even under a very restricted water environment. And once companies get that idea in their mind, suddenly you'd be surprised at what they can do. And we've seen that happening already. I'm going to quote a couple of companies off the cuff because they're already out there in the media. But if you look at Anglo American's commitments, 50% water cut by 2030. That is a huge amount. They use billions of cubes of water every single year, and they're expecting to be able to cut that by 50%. That doesn't happen just by changing people's opinions, but also by investing a lot of money. And they believe that that is a sustained business model, value add to their business in terms of security and ongoing business in a country and in other countries that are water stressed. So I think, yes, it is starting to gain traction, to answer your question. It's just how fast and where. And I think as media and as the rest of us looking at it critically, we also need to keep our eyes open. A lot of this isn't just shouted about. It seems to happen a bit organically, and we need to pull out the good examples and weigh them out there, because other people then tend to follow.
Absolutely. No, thanks for that, Richard. That's good news. Folks, we're actually running out of time. Sorry. Yeah, there's one more important question I want to ask from Vanessa, who's joined us. I think, Vanessa, are you online? Yeah, so Vanessa's joined us quickly, and I just want to ask a very important question in terms of what kind of career opportunities are available for youth or career starters in this sector.
Thanks, Brendan. I think I'll start off by introducing myself because I've just joined. I missed that part. So my name is Vanessa Tite, and I am a professional officer in climate change, energy, and resilience at ICLEI Africa. And I have a little bit of background in environmental and water science, as well as integrated water resources management. But my current focus is on nature-based solutions. It is on investigating collaboration mechanisms that can, effectively harness relationships between different levels of government to build local level climate resilience in African cities. And I'm also working around scaling up and empowering movements for climate change advocacy in Africa. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. And to answer your question, Brendan, I would say that we can see that there's a huge demand for skilled professionals and, of course, entry-level graduates with the relevant water projects, but in the areas of climate change, sustainability, especially in developing countries, in African countries. But then as the youth, well, particularly myself back in the days, and of course those who can relate to this, we often get intimidated by these terminologies: climate change, sustainability, resilience, etc. And you think, oh, my degree says finance, I can possibly only apply for chartered accountant positions, or I have a water science degree or groundwater degree. That means I can only look for jobs from Department of Water Affairs or Ministry of Water Affairs, but that's not the case, because there are multiple jobs out there in the fields of climate change, sustainability, energy, resilience, disaster risk reduction, climate finance, and your particular degree or your career background in water somehow fits in there. And the best thing about that is that you get to touch on multiple career paths all at the same time. You get to work on energy projects, nature-based solutions projects, water projects, mobility, waste, food projects, and almost all at the same time, because all these fields are somehow interlinked. And once you have that on your CV, you can almost apply for any job in any field that you want. So before I wrap up, Brendan, I would like to emphasize that the future of the youth in Africa is extremely promising. So I would like to ask our mayors, our government, our private sector, the NGOs to please create more opportunities for the youth, not just for the sake of providing jobs, but to recognize that this is the generation that will need to ensure that our resources in the continent are sustainable in the future. And our governments, they need to see that climate action it is actually an opportunity to deliver more jobs, more opportunities, economic security across all sectors, for the youth and of course for the women. So there is a need to start thinking ahead about how the younger generation can be empowered with different skills, with trainings, with the technology, to make sure that we make a meaningful progress in the fight against climate change. So I think I will stop here. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, for that very important input right at the end there. Yeah, it feels like we could go on for another couple of hours, but unfortunately we can't. So I want to thank all of you for an enjoyable discussion, for opening our eyes and our minds, and your time is much appreciated. And yeah, hopefully these conversations will happen all over the place all the time. So thanks once again.